Confused about the difference between standard and general form for a quadratic function? Let's explore this together. Hi, welcome to Algebra Examples. You can call me Dr. Finch. I have a PhD in mathematics and over 20 years of experience in math education. If you have a question that you'd like to see answered, please feel free to send me an email with a picture of your example that you'd like to see at purplefinchmath@gmail.com. All right, let's get into it. So we are asked in this example to write f of x is equal to x squared minus x in standard form. Before we get too deep into that, let's just go over and remind ourselves what the difference is between standard form and general form for a quadratic function. All right, so down here we have our general form has the look of f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. A, B, and C are just numbers. So in general, it's something like x squared plus 2x minus 5 will be a general form for a quadratic function. And the one thing that we have to have true is A has to be non-zero. Because you'll notice if A is 0, 0 times anything is 0, it would kill that first term, and we'd actually be looking at a linear function. So that's what the general form looks like. The standard form, and this is the funky one that we don't see as often, so we don't work with it as often, where we have f of x is equal to a times the quantity x minus h squared. Notice the squared is on the outside of the parentheses, plus k. So we have two new letters that appear in the standard form here. We have this h and this k that appears. The one reason why standard form is useful at times is because this h and k tells us the vertex of the parabola. The vertex is this point right here. It's either at the top of our parabola if we have an unhappy face, or it's at the bottom of our parabola if we're looking at a smiley face. Our HK will be at the apex there, or the nadir. Ooh, fancy pants words. Let's just call it the vertex. All right, so we are going from a general form. So the example we have looks like this, and we want to get it into this form right here. The first thing that we always do when we're going from general to standard is figure out what is our A, what is our B, and what is our C. So let's go back up here and see what we can do with this. So notice our function is x squared minus x. So our A value, since we're usually looking at ax squared plus bx plus c, let's put this in a nice different color. A is equal to 1. It's that hidden coefficient that's in front, right? Our B value, notice our number here is a negative sign here. So we have B is negative 1. And we don't see a third number in our formula right here, which means that our C value is 0. So now we know A, B, and C. This is going to give us some information that we're going to use to move into the standard form. And there are two equations that we are going to use to figure out our standard form. I'll write them off to the side here. The first one is h is equal to negative b over 2a. That is always going to work no matter what. The second equation for our k value, there's different ways to write this out. The one that I like the best, that I think is usually the easiest, and this may or may not be your favorite, is to just plug h into our function. There is, let's see, we can also write, I'll put the other bits in here as well. This is the same as f plugging in negative b over 2a. And this is also the same as c minus b squared over 4a. Now there's a little bit of algebra involved that shows that this is going to be our function. Actually, the c minus b squared over 4a is the same thing as f of h. Let's not go through that mess right now. If you want to see it at a future date, just send a comment and I can post something. Otherwise, it's not something that anybody really needs to know. Okay, going back to our problem, our first value that we're going to go for, that we're going to look for, is the h, right? Because in our standard form, this is what we want. There are three variables or three letters in here that we need. We need an A, we need an H, and we need a K. We know what our A is because we were already given it. Let's figure out our H and our K using our formulas. So H is negative B over 2A. Let's plug in our B, and notice I'm going to put parentheses around our B value because it's a -1. Double negatives, negative, negative is positive. So this gives us H is equal to 1/2. So notice we already have our A. We now have our H. Last thing we need is our K value. All right, so K is the same as plugging in our H value into our function. Our H value is 1/2. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this information, we're going to put it in this function right here, and everywhere we see an X, instead of putting X, we'll put 1/2. So we're going to start off with 1/2 quantity squared minus 1/2. We are going to simplify this a little bit. So let's go to the next level here. We'll go into here. Our squared distributes between our top and the bottom of our fraction. Okay. And if you don't want to put all this detail in, you can probably get away with it depending on your teacher. I like to put it in just so that students see it. You know. Okay, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4. Now, before we slam these two fractions together, we need a common denominator. The common denominator will be 4, and 1/2 is the same as 2 out of 4. Okay, now that we have that, if they have the same denominator, you can smush them together. So everything on top, 1 minus 2 all over 4. And 1 minus 2 is a -1 over 4. So here's our third number. Our K value is -1 over 4. All right, we have our three pieces of information, and now we just need to write it into our formula. I'm going to start by rewriting what we needed. Okay. Whew, lots of mess there. Let's start off A value. A is 1, so let's plug a 1 in there. Next up, leave our X alone. We're going to minus our H value. Our H is 1/2. And everything else we copy paste, so the whole quantity is squared there. Plus, instead of a K, we're going to put a -1/4. I'm going to go through one more step and clean this up a little bit. Instead of writing 1 times something, we always know the 1 kind of disappears. So we can write this as X minus 1/2, quantity squared, and adding a negative is the same as subtracting a number. So we can write it out as -1/4 on the end. So here is our solution for the standard form of the equation x squared minus x. It was a lot of work, and hopefully whatever teacher you have, if they ask you to do something similar, I hope they allow you to use notes, because this formula is really important, and you've got better things to do with your brain space than memorize formulas. Thanks for listening.